I think Pikmin is one of the weirdest Nintendo franchises around. I always thought that it was an RTS game catered towards an audience that realistically doesn't really like RTS games. And it's hard to find sales figures for the franchise, but it seems to be in the same boat as the Metroid series, where they review very well, they're considered really high quality games, but they just don't sell that well. It very clearly has a hardcore audience, but it never really blew the mind of the public. And I was one of them people. I have never touched a Pikmin game up until now. I know basically nothing about the franchise outside of Olimar's appearance in Smash. So now in 2023, I have played all 3 Pikmin games back to back, and I have a lot to say. Are the older Pikmin games hard to play nowadays? And am I excited for Pikmin 4 after beating all these 3 games? Well, that's what this retrospective review on Pikmin 1, 2 and 3 is all about. And stick around to the end where I will rank all 3 of them. Pikmin 1 was originally released in 2001 on the GameCube, a console I never owned, and even if I did own it, I was 3 at the time, so I probably wouldn't have played it anyway. And they were later ported to the Wii, where I still never played them. But now they are finally on the Nintendo Switch, and I bought them and I played them, and straight away, I love how hands-off Pikmin 1 is. You crash land on an alien planet, and the game just lets you explore, and instantly I was captured by it. Absolutely everything felt like a discovery, and since it was a hostile alien planet, everything felt dangerous. Like I was genuinely afraid of what could be around the next corner. Of course, you're introduced to these little feckers, the Pikmin, and I think this is Nintendo at their best. Throughout the years, they've created some amazing characters, and by God are the designs of these dopey little guys endearing. So while everything was scary and I was getting to the grips on how to spawn new Pikmin, how to control them and what they do, I had my little army of Pikmin, and as I said, everything just felt so dangerous. And on top of all that, I didn't want to kill my Pikmin. These guys have somehow latched onto me as their leader, and honestly, I didn't want to let them down. Every time I accidentally blew one up, drowned one, or got one devoured by some scary creature, I felt awful. And it's all these systems of guilt and stress that made this game feel so special. The basics of this game are: you find 3 different colour Pikmin, the red ones are fireproof, the blue ones like water, and the yellow guys can be thrown really high and can also pick up bombs to blow crap up. You gather more Pikmin by taking the corpse of your enemies back to your base, or finding these flowers and taking them back to your base, and it's a simple concept to grasp, but this game is so stressful. I love time limits in games when they're done well, and Majora's Mask is my favourite game of all time because that is the best example of time limits done well. And not only does Pikmin have a day and night cycle where you can only do things during the day, and at night time you have to fly into orbit because all the creatures will start killing you. There is also a 30-day time limit where Olimar must find 30 parts of his ship to get off the planet, and that is where the brilliance of Pikmin 1 comes. I just seriously love this game. Every single decision matters. Every enemy you kill, every new pathway, every Pikmin that you send to their death. Typically on a day in Pikmin, I set out with a goal in mind. I want to get this ship part over to this side of the map. And once you map out your route, you have loads of different decisions to make. Maybe you broke open a door to create a path that'll make the return journey easier. Maybe you forgot to kill an enemy on a previous day, so now you have to factor that into your plans. You can either kill the enemy before you set out, or just hope that you can avoid them. And regardless of what you do, there will be deaths and you will feel awful for each one. The sense of discovery is what kept me coming back. I couldn't wait to see what the next path would lead to, or how exactly I was going to go about collecting the different ship parts. It took me ages to realise that red Pikmin were fireproof, but then when I did realise it, it made my life so much easier. I could now reliably kill these red snout enemies that were previously burning all of my Pikmin, because I knew then that I could use red Pikmin to carry the ship parts back over fire. And I love how the game just lets me figure this all out without holding my hand. Yes, every decision was impactful, and it also meant that a lot of Pikmin were going to die. But at the very least, I knew I was learning some new mechanic or a new piece of information that would help me going forward. And I think this sense of discovery is highlighted by the big boss enemies. The first encounter with any of these bosses are horrifying as I watch tens of my Pikmins get demolished or turn into evil mushroom Pikmin. But then when I finally realised the method I had to use to kill them, I was over the moon. It's very difficult to find games like this nowadays. Yes, games like Tears of the Kingdom and Elden Ring exist, where they just give you a world to explore and they don't hold your hand. But nowadays, I either know something about a game going into it, or the game is quite hand-holdy with tutorials, especially Nintendo games. And I was just blown away with how hands-off this game is. It's honestly perfect in this regard. And when I finished Pikmin 1, I was afraid that going forward, Pikmin 2 and 3 would get a bit more hand-holdy, because that does seem to be the way Nintendo have gone just in their general game design over the years. Now this next point is a weird one, but I think it highlights why I like Pikmin 1 so much. And that's because the game reminds me a lot of Minecraft and a lot of Resident Evil 1 HD. So just stick with me for a couple of minutes. I haven't felt this excited for and scared of what was around the next corner than I have been since I first started playing Minecraft in 2010. It was just a bit scary with the different noises and not knowing what enemies could do, but the resources you lose are invaluable, just like your Pikmin and Pikmin 1. And then the Resident Evil comparison comes with the planning aspect of it. There are times when you go to an area completely unequipped, and you might need red Pikmin to get past fire, or yellow Pikmin to blow up a wall, and that's when there is some frustration in it, but it adds to the tension of the game, just like the first Resident Evil did. Now, it's not perfect. First, the Pikmin AI can be a bit stupid, to be honest. They get stuck behind walls, under bridges, and some just decide that they don't want to be there and drown themselves. It's never overly annoying, but it did get in the way a bit. And there were a few quality of life improvements that were brought in later in Pikmin 3, like a lock-on for combat, and I really wish that this game had it, because the combat in Pikmin 1 is clunky, and I avoided it at all costs, which I guess is another parallel to Resident Evil 1. I'm seriously blown away by how good this game is nowadays. There's no nostalgia goggles here, and even still, I've found loads to love about the game. I think Pikmin 1 is Nintendo at their best. Just brilliant character design, brilliant level design, and just like the early days of Nintendo, there's not that many tutorials, and they just let you explore and figure things out yourself. It's somehow a calming game because running around these environments as a little spaceman, it's just really cute. The Pikmin are really cute. But then you have this stress, and you just have a knot in your stomach at times because you know, oh, will I be able to get this piece back? Or will I be able to kill this enemy in time? Will I be able to fight this boss? Will my Pikmin be able to make it back to the Runyon before nighttime? And it's that stress that just makes this game, just elevates it to what I really love. And honestly, this is one of my favorite Nintendo games now. It's just amazing. Now, as I said at the start of this video, I don't really know anything about Pikmin. I kind of have an idea of what the general consensus is, but it seems to be quite mixed on which Pikmin is everybody's favourite. But then we get on to Pikmin 2, and this game isn't very good. I honestly just wanted to give up after about the 50% mark, and I've no interest in ever going back to it, so let's talk about it. Pikmin 1 got its difficulty from the time limit. Every decision mattered, and since time was an issue, you had to be judicious with your Pikmin, because killing a lot of them would force you to waste time spawning more Pikmin. Pikmin 2 takes a different approach. The day-night cycle is still here, but there is no time limit. You can run out the clock as much as you like, and your goal is to repay the debt of the freighting company that Olimar works for by collecting treasures throughout the galaxy. And honestly, I think this game is hilarious. The character models are funny, Louis is a dopey fecker, and listening to the president of the company had me chuckling. I mean, just look at him. Apart from that though, the game is completely different from Pikmin 1, and pretty much always for the worst. The first game's difficulty came in time management, and Pikmin 2's difficulty comes in the unit management, and it's because of the two new Pikmin, the purple and the white guys. The purple are big, hefty bruisers that deal a lot of damage, and the white ones can deal with poison and also carry things fast. But how you get them is by exploring these caves, throwing Pikmin into a flower, and then spawning them, so they are precious. And I mean precious. The core of exploring these levels and finding treasures is still there, and it's still quite fun. However, it's missing the time limit, so my decisions weren't as impactful. And on top of that, this game introduces procedurally generated caves that I honestly hated. In these, you have to go deeper and deeper, find treasure, and kill a boss at the end. And after a few of these, I didn't want to do anymore. The handcrafted design of the overworld levels is missing. Combat in these first two games is quite clunky and not very satisfying, so I honestly hate it. The biggest problem is that this is basically like 80% of the game. That's how you get the majority of the treasures, and they're just so boring. Yes, they're randomly generated and feel lifeless. Yes, you are forced to engage in clunky combat, but the worst part is how slow they are. Some floors could have 3 or 4 different treasures that you have to throw Pikmin at and then wait for them to deliver the treasure, and some of these caves have like 8 floors to them. And if there was a time limit, it would have given them some tension, and you would have had to properly decide what treasures to get in the time limit. But no, I would clear the floor, get the treasure, put the controller down until they were delivered. In Pikmin 2, you can now change between 2 characters and have them do different things. And I think this is a great idea that's properly fleshed out in the third game, but more on that later. I think I can see that in Pikmin 2, there are times where you can min-max your operations so that Olimar could be doing one thing while Louis stays back at the base to pluck Pikmin or even break a door near the base. But I didn't feel the need to use it because I didn't really feel any time pressure. Whether I broke the door on day 3 or day 5, it didn't really matter all too much. And I've no interest in trying to perfect my score in Pikmin 2 like I would in Pikmin 1 because I just can't hack the over-reliance on caves and combat. Another massive issue with this game is that the sense of discovery isn't there. Everything in Pikmin 1 felt tense, but in Pikmin 2, your handy-dandy computer explains everything to you. What the different enemies do, what caves are, the different elements, and stuff like that. And this is where I would have preferred a more hands-off approach. It just kind of ruined the discovery of it because every time I'd see something new, the computer would come down and spout some really boring dialogue that I didn't care about, where I would have preferred if the game just showed me something, and then I had to interact with it to figure out what was going on. But maybe in the focus testing, or they had some data on the original Pikmin that people found it quite confusing, and maybe that's what they were trying to fix. But I think ultimately it hurts the game. About 50% of the way through this game, I just wanted to give up. It wasn't gripping me. Pikmin 1 had such inventive level design, and Pikmin 2 has it too, but every new door or pathway led me to one of these caves, and I paid off the debt in the game, turned it off, and never looked back. Now on to Pikmin 3, and this game was originally released on the Wii U, now it's on the Switch. And this game doesn't have a time limit, but it's honestly not as big an issue as it was in Pikmin 2, because the rest of the game is absolutely fantastic. This time around, you no longer play as Olimar. Instead, you have 3 characters that you can have doing different things, and the level design reflects this, and they're just an absolute treat to explore. I like the 2 new Pikmin, my favourite being these little rock guys that smash glass and rock, but also absolutely destroy enemies. And then you have these little pink flying guys, and these offered a different perspective on how to play. A couple of times I had to rack my brain thinking how I would get this fruit home or build one of the bridges, but I was thinking about how to lay out a path on the ground for my Pikmin to walk, where I should just be sending the pink guys flying home and not worry about hazards on the ground. This has the best level design in the series. Firstly, the caves are gone, which I was so happy about. The levels are massive with loads of different paths, loads of different enemies, and some inventive ways to force you to using all the 3 characters at once. Typically, I had 2 characters with me, and then one back at the base to collect new Pikmin and do menial tasks around the base. But throughout the levels, you have to throw other characters across gaps, and it actually made multiple characters useful outside of simply just wanting to min-max my time. And I touched on it before, but you're probably wondering why the lack of time limit isn't too big an issue in this game, and I think it's because of how well the levels are laid out. I still would have preferred if every decision counted like a Pikmin 1, but in the absence of that, they created these wonderful levels, and I honestly wasn't missing the time limit too much when I was exploring them, because I was simply just having so much fun. There are a few new mechanics that make this the most fluid to play in the series. First, there's a lock-on system and a new charge ability that make combat and sending groups of Pikmin to do a task way easier than before. I know there was that directional move thing in the previous 2, but I didn't like how the AI reacted to that most of the time. But the charge is such a good feature to spam down enemies when they're vulnerable, and then lock-on makes combat about 100 times better. On top of that, you can send your characters to different points on the map, so you don't have to manually walk one back. Instead, you just choose the character, click where they need to go on the map, and there you go. This is a massive improvement. So not only are the levels designed better around using multiple characters, this mechanic makes it so much easier to do it. And I keep saying that the level design in this is the best in the series, and it's epitomised in the final level. This is my favourite level that I've played in the whole of these 3 games. It's absolutely fantastic. It forces you to use every single Pikmin, it forces you to use every single character, but it also gives you a time limit of pressure, which I think is what makes Pikmin absolutely amazing. And I would have loved to see what Pikmin 3 would have been like if they had this time pressure like they did in the last level. Basically, you found Olimar and have to escort him through this labyrinth, opening a path, but also avoiding this monstrosity that is chasing. And the pressure here just proves to me that that's when Pikmin is. Basically, you have to use Brittany to lead Olimar away from the boss, and then use the other 2 to break down walls and open up the correct path. And it took me multiple days to complete, but Jesus, is it fun. And then the fight at the end forces you to use different Pikmin at different times, rather than just spamming all of them at once. And it's just an amazing final level. While I still would have preferred if Pikmin 3 had a time limit like Pikmin 1, Pikmin 3 opened my eyes because I thought that the lack of a time limit in Pikmin 2 was my biggest issue, but I just realised that it was everything else in Pikmin 2 that made it not so fun, whereas Pikmin 3 was just so enjoyable even without a time limit. Again, the final level proved to me that it is at its best when there is a time limit, but it also showed that if you have absolutely amazing level design and loads of intricate ways to explore, different paths, different items to find, then Pikmin can still be really good without a time limit. Running throughout all of these 3 games is a level of charm that not many games can achieve, and I think it's just Nintendo's creativity at its peak. First of all, I love the character designs. The Pikmin are very cute, and the president from Pikmin 2 is simply hilarious. The little details are nailed. Olimar's ship is the SS Dolphin, which was the code name for the GameCube. Olimar's captain logs, where he ponders about his role with the Pikmin and questions who's leading who, is way deeper than it has any right to be. Hearing the president chat crap about how he has to go into hiding to avoid debt collectors. All of these moments are just so memorable, but then the game just has that Honey, I Shrunk the Kids charm of little guys in a big world interacting with real world items, and had a great time reading the names that they gave everyday items that you and I know. And I'm honestly just so glad that I played this series because it is a special one, and I can understand why people love it so much. And there's one more thing before we rank them. Ever since I started playing Pikmin, I've been fed a lot of Pikmin videos. I've tried to avoid reviews and retrospectives, but I've seen a few videos on like Pikmin secrets, and I didn't realize the amount of secrets in these games. I don't want to spoil any, but there's like specific secrets that you can only get if you go to this planet on this day, or a cool enemy you'll find if you land on this planet on day 4. And already this series has loads of replayability. I can see myself going back to Pikmin 1 to perfect my score. I can see myself going back to Pikmin 3 to collect all the fruit as well. Pikmin 2, I don't really care. I don't think I'll ever go back to that one. But the fact that not only can I perfect my score on my second playthrough, but also there are loads of things that I haven't even discovered yet just makes it so exciting. And just that discovery running through this whole series of Pikmin is what makes the game special. Time limit and discovery is best. But if you still give me discovery with great levels like Pikmin 3, then they're still amazing games. But now, it's time to rank. I don't think this is going to come as a surprise. Number 3 is Pikmin 2. Without the quality of life improvements, the combat scene in Pikmin 3, the overall lines of fighting ruined Pikmin 2. It feels slightly clunky, and then the caves were just the final nail in the coffin. I love the story. It still has some fun levels to explore, but it's seriously hindered by the caves. Number 2 is Pikmin 3. It has no time limit, which is a massive shame. But the level design is the best in the series. This feels a bit more like a collectathon than the previous 2 games, where they give you these rather large, intricate designed levels, and they actually implemented multiple characters well into the gameplay with the sections where you need to use multiple characters to solve a puzzle. And that final boss was so much fun. It forced me to use all 3 characters, and it added that tension that I was missing from Pikmin 1. And no surprise here, but the best Pikmin game is Pikmin 1. And it's due to the sense of discovery and mystery. It's a tense experience with the time limit, and it made every single decision matter. This is the one I'd be most interested in going back to and trying to perfect my score. But it's just a special game, and that's all I have to say about it. Now, Pikmin 4 is right around the corner. That's the reason why I played these. I will be reviewing Pikmin 4. I will also play the demo. I might stream it. So I really appreciate you watching. Keep your eye out on the Pikmin 4 content. Thank you so much for the support on the channel. It means a lot because it's been going crazy. So thank you very much. Subscribe, like, join Discord. Yes, goodbye. See you next video. Yeah, that's how my outro goes. Goodbye, and then I do this. Goodbye. Yeah, goodbye.